When I hear the name Nismo, I usually think of all of Nissan's coolest trim levels for some of their coolest cars, like the GTR and the 370Z. But there's also some other Nismo cars out there, like the Juke. Yeah, I haven't really reviewed any crap cars yet, but I'm glad I finally decided to take on the challenge of reviewing a crap car, because I usually love all cars. And the Nissan Juke is just a car I cannot come to love. It's just super ugly and just not fun. First, before we address this awful design, let's address what's really powering this car, because the name Nismo by any car guy would mean a great version of a car. Normally, it would mean a Nissan sports car, but let's see if they did anything to the Juke that made it much more special. Let's start off with the base Juke, the Juke S. That car comes with 188 horsepower and 177 pound-feet of torque, and has a 0 to 60 of 7.3 seconds. Let's start off with the base Juke. That trim level is called the S, and the S comes with 188 horsepower and 177 pound-feet of torque, and it has a 0 to 60 time of 7.2 seconds. And for an SUV, that's actually some pretty good numbers. It's not slow and it's not super fast by any means. So what about this Nismo trim? Well, the Nismo trim comes with 197 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque, and has a 0 to 60 of 6.9 seconds. And that's using the numbers from the front-wheel drive version, which is faster than the all-wheel drive version. And yeah, that's not a big improvement at all. If the improvement was a larger difference, I probably wouldn't hate the drivetrain as much, as some slow cars can be pretty fun, but that's just kind of crap. And I have driven this car, and it's a little disappointing. To make matters worse or better, the base Juke costs just under 20 grand, and the Juke Nismo costs just under 24 grand. So you're paying 4 grand more for a body kit and a barely shaved 0 to 60 time. Now, I do understand seconds really matter in racing, but I doubt anyone's really going to be racing this, and if they were, a base Juke really wouldn't be far behind. And to make matters even worse, if you wanted an all-wheel drive model, especially if you live somewhere where all-wheel drive is good for you, well, that is going to cost you a little more and hurt your 0 to 60 time by bumping it down to 8.3 seconds. To make matters a little better, you can option this with a 6-speed manual, but I imagine that's not going to make you much happier. And if you are to get one of these, do choose the manual. CVTs suck. Anyway, that's enough about this awful drivetrain. Now let's move on to the much better looks. Obviously, I'm not telling the truth there. These looks are worse than the drivetrain, surprisingly. Just look at this car. I really wanted to like this car, and I looked at it pretty hard before this video to see if there's maybe anything about it that I like. This front-end design looks terrible. It looks like they were trying to do multiple things at once and just severely failed. And it almost reminds me of the Pontiac Aztek. Now, the front end on this car is a little different than a regular Nissan Juke. The Nismo gets a little better looking front bumper. But beyond that up front, there's nothing different. Moving on to the side of this car, you notice there are different rims on here, and there's also some side skirts on here as well. I do actually like that a little bit. It looks nicer with these than without these. And then there's also the side mirror here, which is painted the same color as the stripe on the side skirts, a sort of red-orange color. Speaking of the side profile, that's the one thing I really don't hate, is the side profile excluding the front end. It's not the worst thing out there, but it's certainly not the best thing out there. The rear end doesn't look great, but it's not super ugly. These taillights do curve in a bit, and there is some hips on this car. The added spoiler in the back does look kind of good on this car, I guess in comparison to a regular Nissan Juke, but again, it's not great. In fact, I dislike this car so much, I'd put it on the same level of ugliness as the Pontiac Aztek. Yeah, if you know anything about the Pontiac Aztek, that's one ugly car, just like this. Anyway, that's my opinions on the exterior and drivetrain. Let's talk about the interior. Unfortunately, I'm sitting in a Nissan Juke right now. I'm sure that's something many people have said before, but really, this isn't great. Okay, maybe I'm being a little too harsh on the Nismo version here, but this is better than a regular Nissan Juke. This interior is a little more well done. Starting off with the dash area here, there's nothing really special about it. Now, it's the same across every Nissan Juke of this time, and the only thing really different here is the steering wheel. The steering wheel's got two different materials on it. It's got leather, and then it's also got this Alcantara sort of material on it, and it looks pretty good. I actually don't mind the steering wheel at all, and it's got some controls on it for your radio and cruise control. As far as the dash goes, there's nothing special about it. There is a backup camera with a screen here, and that is pretty nice. To be fair, this radio is pretty good, and I am glad that there is a backup camera on this. Now here comes a complaint again about the Nissan Juke. These doors. They feel pretty cheap. There's nothing really special about them, first off, and second off, it feels like they tried with this sort of Alcantara material again on the door, but otherwise it's pretty much the same. The only other positive thing I have about this interior are these seats. They are much more sporty than a regular Juke, not that you'll need them like this, but they also have a Nismo logo printed on them. As far as room goes in this interior, it's fine, it's not great, and in the back, the storage situation also isn't great either, but there is enough room to seat 5 in here, maybe not comfortably in the back, but there is enough seats for 5 people. Anyway, that's the Nissan Juke's interior. Well, we've talked about all there is to talk about the Nissan Juke. Obviously, it's a great car. Not. Well, as you can tell, I do not like this car, and I really did try to like it. I tried to look at the positives before turning on the camera, but there's just really none. I've been in a base Nissan Juke before, and this just isn't much better. Just don't buy a Nissan Juke in general, and if you are to seriously consider one, consider this Nismo or the Nismo RS. It's a little better than this, but it still isn't great. This 2014 model is the second year that they ever did make these, but they didn't make tons of improvements as time went on. I would be lying to all of you if I told you that this was a good car in any respect. It's just not. I love some of the ugliest and stupidest cars out there, but this one is just not one that I can say I like. Anyway, that was my thoughts on the Nissan Juke NISMO. It's not a great car, and I really cannot recommend it to you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you to Carrick Autos for letting me use their cars. Links in the description to Carrick Autos' website.